It's that time. Everything and anything basketball, presented by The Outrage. With Kajan Thiruthanikasalam and host Spencer Byers, this is Polar Opposites.
Welcome, everyone. Polar Opposites, back again. And Cajun, I'm not a good intro. Spencer Byers, Kajan Thiruthanikasalam. You know what, Cage? I can't do that to you. I can't do that to you. Even with the Raptors stopping what would have been the most historic losing streak ever. Kajan Thiruthanikasalam. And Cage, we gotta start. As much as I want to talk about Caitlin Clark, we'll get into her game winner last night in a minute. The Toronto Raptors finally did something, which we've been waiting a year and a half for.
About time.
And with that trade being said, they lose to the Detroit Pistons, stopping the historic losing streak at 28. The Pistons tied the longest losing streak in NBA history at 28 games. They did not set it with the win over the Raptors. It was a 129-127 win for the lowly Detroit Pistons. So, Cage, we'll start with the game because the trade is a little more interesting for me. The Raptors lose to the team that had won in 29, and I got to be honest, Cage, I couldn't be happier because you and I bantered back and forth that the Raptors were going to beat the Celtics and then they were going to lose to the Pistons. Not only did the Raptors lose to Boston at the Garden, they then go to Detroit and lose to Detroit. And at Cade Cunningham, 30 points and 12 assists. Jalen Duren had 18 points and 17 rebounds in the win.
I mean, the minute that Detroit-Boston game happened and it didn't go in Detroit's favor, like, you kind of knew. I would have just hoped that Toronto would have stole a game against Boston. They almost did, but didn't do it. But I saw that line with Toronto being -3. And I'm like, what are we doing here? And especially like once the trade happened and they didn't have many pieces there in the first place, it's like, why is Toronto even favored in the first place? So it's like you kind of like there's that general feeling that like if it didn't happen against Boston, it was gonna happen against Toronto. So there's too much pride going on in Detroit, and Toronto was just a mess. A mess until they actually got their new pieces back. They actually got their new pieces in action.
Well, the Raptors did have another game after the loss to Detroit, and it was the new look team that was involved in that one. And they were able to get the win 124-121 over the Cleveland Cavaliers. So you may be wondering, if you haven't seen the news, I would be surprised, but let's talk about it, Cage. The Toronto Raptors and New York Knicks finally get something done for the Raptors. The New York Knicks get OG Anunoby, Precious Achiuwa, and Malachi Flynn. The Raptors receive RJ Barrett, Emmanuel Quickley, and a future second-round pick, that pick being a Detroit pick.
Mm-hmm.
So it's basically a first-round pick because of how bad the Pistons are. But Gage, I'll be honest, from everyone I've seen talk about this trade, including you and I, everyone seems to think the Raptors basically robbed the New York Knicks. Are you still in that camp? One game in?
I still think so. And let me explain why. I love OG Anunoby and the defense that he provided, like the two-way play that he provided. But a team with him, Siakam, and Barnes was becoming redundant and wasn't leading to wins, and their defense wasn't really that good. Plus, you don't want to go down that same rabbit hole that you did with Fred VanVleet and he ended up leaving for nothing. You have to get some value out of it. So they did. And I think it was a good trade for the Knicks in terms of getting OG because he one game in it seems like he's been a better like he has fit what the Knicks needed from him. But it's who they gave up in the process. I know RJ Barrett hasn't lived up to being the number 3 pick in the 2019 NBA draft. He's still young and a heck of an NBA player and a better scorer than OG was. And can play off of Barnes better than OG ever did, at least on the offensive end of the floor. Yeah, sure, you lose defense, but hey, the Raptors weren't very good defensively in the first place this season. So you would think RJ Barrett being home would rehab his value and play more free and thrive in his home country. That's one thing. When I saw Emmanuel Quickly was involved and was included in the trade, I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. Because Quickly meant he is a stud. I think he was second in Sixth Man of the Year voting last year. Extension talks with the Knicks kind of stalled out. I think it was just kind of held back by like the fact that Jalen Brunson was starting at the 1. But man, he's got room. Like he's still young too, and he's got a significant amount of room to grow. Kind of reminds me of a poor man's Tyrese Maxey. In terms of like if he gets that opportunity, he's going to run with it. And he's got a great opportunity with the Raptors to take a hold of the starting point guard job and run with it and like grow with RJ Barrett and Scotty Barnes. And whatever young guys they bring in that in the process as well. Now it remains to be seen what they do with Siakam, whether they trade him or not, because like you would expect Siakam would be next to get traded, but there are talks that like he would not sign an extension and would enter unrestricted free agency. So I don't know if that'll scare like every team off or one team's willing to take a risk of that. But right now, the Raptors got younger and they arguably got better. And they gave up 2 bench pieces that weren't really doing much in the first place in Precious Achiuwa and Malachi Flynn. And offensively, I was at the game on New Year's Day. I wish I was watching. I was working it. They look like a completely different team offensively. Everything looked more fluid, and bench play was a big difference. Gary Trent Jr. and Dennis Schroeder off the bench. There's a lot more offensive pop. And I don't know if this will turn their season around in terms of this or if they should continue losing. But finally, there's a better direction in sight for this Raptors team. And man, the Knicks, in order to make this deal fair, better re-sign OG Anunoby, because if he bolts to another team in free agency, they've effectively traded away RJ Barrett and Emmanuel Quickly for Malachi Flynn and Precious Achiuwa. That ain't a good look. Especially for James Dolan, who's already been fleeced by Masai Ujiri once upon a time with Andrea Bargnani.
Well, we'll have to see, but let's break it down a little bit more for individual players. You mentioned there Emmanuel Quickly, who's probably the more polarizing option because he was a bench guard for the Knicks, so you don't really know what he's going to look like when he starts. He did start the first game for the Raptors. He played 28 minutes. He had
He
14
did.
points,
Oh, he
6
did start.
rebounds, and 3 assists. Yes, he did start. So the starting could also add a new wrinkle because now you've got Schroeder on the bench, you got Gary Trent Jr. on the bench, you've got it quickly. So now you can really figure out which guy fits the best beside Scotty Barnes, which guy fits the best beside the other to be able to have a really good 7-guy rotation. And then you got a guy like Jaden McDaniels off the bench. If Grady Dick can find his jumper back again, maybe he could find some minutes in there somewhere. Like this Raptors rotation looks pretty damn good now with the
Mhm.
acquisition of RJ Barrett and Emmanuel Quickly. And you and I are fans of RJ Barrett.
Yep.
Let's not sell ourselves short here. So you and I will think that the Raptors won this trade because of how big of fans we are of RJ Barrett. But I do think the Knicks got probably the best player for what they need him for. OG is not going to be the guy. He's not even going to be the second guy. OG is going to be the third option to spot up behind the arc and play great defense. And he's going to do that. So, yes, I think RJ Barrett is a relatively equal player to OG Anunoby. And yes, I think RJ Barrett can be a better player than OG Anunoby. And I think Emmanuel Quickly could be a great player. I just don't know if he'll be able to hit that now at 24. OG's 26. He's almost at what he's going to be. If he's not fully capped out his ceiling, he's almost there, right?
Mhm.
And he's a 15-point a game guy, 50% from the field, about 37, 38% from three. That's what OG Anunoby is. And that's perfect beside guys like Brunson, as you mentioned, and Julius Randle, as much as you love Julius Randle. He's going to be the third option on that team. And I don't think there's a guy that you can pick out better for the third guy role in New York than OG Anunoby, especially, again, with the defense he brings that your favorite coach, Tom Thibodeau, is going to love in New York at the Garden.
I mean, even though he fouled out in that game against the Timberwolves, you saw flashes of it. And like the hierarchy has, like in terms of like the Knicks offense has been more clear, with Randall and Brunson being the top dogs, and OG just playing off of them. Obviously, you still got some underrated pieces in there, like Isaiah Hartenstein, at the center position. Dante DiVincenzo seems like he's going to start for the time being, with Josh Hart coming off the bench. The bigger area of interest, though, is Miles McBride, because he might just take over that Emmanuel Quickly role. How soon can he acclimate himself to that role? I think that's going to be the deciding factor here. I still feel like the Knicks gave up too much for a guy who might walk in free agency, though. That to me is my issue.
I will make sure I fix myself. I believe I said Jaden McDaniels. It's Jalen McDaniels. L, not D. Is Jaden McDaniels plays for the Minnesota Timberwolves. And I will say they're brothers. Same height, same place of birthplace. They did go to different schools. Jaden McDaniels, as I know, went to Washington to play for the Huskies, while Jalen played for the SDSU. And I'm actually, Jalen McDaniels is the older brother at 25, while Jaden is just 23. So if I ever make that mistake again, I will correct myself. But also, really, you gotta, not only do you name your kids the same letter, you literally give them the same name except for one letter. One letter is different. Jaden, Jalen. You've got to be kidding me. You got to be kidding me. Okay, that would put him on the same team, Cage. You just hating yourself. I can tell you, as a commentator myself, that would not be a fun day in the office.
Nah, would
McDaniels to
not be.
McDaniels. At that point, I just call him Jalen and Jaden and hope I don't mess that up.
Oh man. Thankfully, they don't look exactly alike. Otherwise, that would be a whole nother different problem in itself.
That it would be. But now we will move off of the trade that the Raptors finally made. And you kind of mentioned there was Siakam, Cage. But do you think Pascal Siakam will be traded before the deadline? Before the NBA trade deadline, Pat comes and goes.
As much as he should, I don't think he will. Because I think teams are going to be scared off with him wanting to enter unrestricted free agency and don't want to take that chance.
Well, the trade deadline in about a month on February 8th is the deadline day. So it'll be interesting to see if the Raptors make another deal, if it's Siakam or if it's somebody else involved. But more waves could be made here in the north side of the NBA.
I'm just glad there was a move being made and that there's a direction.
They finally made a choice.
Yep. And they arguably got better in the process too.
That definitely helps, doesn't it, Cage? Definitely helps when you make a
Yep.
trade and you feel like you got better even though you got younger.
Hey, it definitely feels good making a trade with the great James Dolan.
Yeah, everyone's favorite owner, unless you're a
Yeah.
Knicks fan. Unless
Well,
you're a Knicks
Masai.
fan.
Well, Masai's favorite contemporary too. They can fleece time and time again. You know who everybody's favorite player is though?
Oh God, who?
Karl Anthony Towns.
I don't even want to hear that from you right now. I don't. We're just gonna act like you didn't say those words in that order, and we're gonna move on to looking around the NBA. Joel Embiid has extended his 30-point, 10-rebound streak to 14 games, the longest since the great Kareem Abdul-Jabbar back in 1972 at 16. So Joel Embiid looking at history too. Some history in the making, Cage, this year. Losing streaks, point and rebound streaks. I mean, this season's
Mm-hmm.
a little bit of everything already, and we're not even halfway through.
Yep. I mean, Embiid just came back after like an ankle injury and mm, took off running in that game, albeit it was against the Bulls with Drummond in the mix, and they ran whoever offense on Drummond. Although I took a risk on like taking his over on rebounds for Drummond, and he went over, so I guess I got that out of the way. Anywho, but Embiid's reached another level from his MVP year last year. And Phillies look good. Philly kind of was a little shaky in his absence, but got themselves a win against Houston, I believe, and against Orlando. A couple of good wins without Embiid. And they just put a shellacking on the Bulls to start things off. They were up like 43-18 after one quarter. And Philly's going to be one of those top dogs in the East where you like if things go right for them, they got the right coach leading the way and Nick Nurse as well. Maybe they might crash that Celtics Bucks Eastern Conference Finals party. But Embiid's doing something only Kareem did like over 50 years ago. And I'm gonna try to look at Philly's next two games. What's Philly's next two games? At least the next two games are
The Knicks and the Jazz.
you would think he would tie it, going up against Hartenstein, and then Utah being Utah.
I mean, Kessler's a good defender, though. I am a big fan of Walker Kessler.
I like Kessler too, but Utah is Utah.
Yeah, that's fair.
And then Atlanta going up against Clint Capella. That should be a fun one. The one that really I'm excited personally to see is the 15th versus Houston, him versus Şengün. Because man, do I love me some Şengün. My fantasy team has benefited from that too. But he could very well break this. He could very well break this run that Kareem Abdul-Jabbar had of 16 straight 30-point, 10 rebound games back in 1972. He could very well do it. And I have to say, he did this in a triple-double performance. He also had 10 assists. So his improvement as a playmaker has really put him on another stratosphere as well.
Well, Cage, and another good point to bring up that you just mentioned there. We'll talk about this. I'm not sure for how long, but I'd like to have this conversation. With how far we are into the season, probably about a third. Who do you think is the MVP? Because Joel Embiid won it last year. He's from last year's total. He is averaging more points, averaging more rebounds, averaging more assists. Is Joel Embiid from last year to this year? And is he the MVP? Is Nikola Jokic averaging 9 assists a game, averaging 12 rebounds a game more than last year? His assists are down from last year, but his turnovers are down a full turnover. So he's averaging about the same amount of assists while limiting the turnovers from last year. His points are up from last year. And that's just the two guys that you'd say are the top dogs. Where does Luka Doncic fit into this category? Where does Jason Tatum fit into this category? Where does Kevin Durant fit into this category? Where does LeBron James fit in this category? So, Cage, a third way into the season, who do you have winning the MVP in the NBA right now?
Now, you just mentioned a lot of those names, but you omitted one name who I think could very well crash
Okay,
this party.
can I say the name I think you're gonna say?
Yes.
You're gonna say a Canadian. You're
Yes.
gonna say an Oklahoma City Thunder guard. You're
Yes.
gonna say the former Los Angeles Clipper, the city of Toronto guard Shai Gilgeous-Alexander.
Yes. And he's continued his production on better efficiency than he did last year. Might I add, as I take a look at how much better his efficiency has been. Last year he averaged 31.4 points per game on 51% shooting from the field, 34% from downtown, and 90.5% at the free throw line. 4.8 rebounds, 5.5 assists, a block per game, and a 0.6 steals per game with 2.8 turnovers. He's got the same amount of points per game this season, 31.4. His blocks have gone down a little bit to 0.8. His three-point percentage has gone down to 33%. But he's shooting 54.9% from the field, 90.7% from the free throw line, albeit on less free throw attempts, might I add. He's increased his rebounding by almost a full rebound, almost increased his assists by a full assist, and has increased his steals by a full steal per game. And has cut down on his turnovers by nearly a full turnover to just under 2 turnovers a game. He has been an elite player, and more importantly, the Thunder's record is a factor as well because they're second in the West, only a game back of the Timberwolves, and Shea's played in more games than Embiid, and has arguably been the more consistent out of the three of Jokic, Embiid only because of injury, and Shea. Shea's been the more consistent of the three. He's been relatively healthy. He's been relatively healthy this season and is putting up big numbers, especially against your Celtics as well. 36, 6, and 7 on, I want to say, yeah, it was 36, 6, and 7. No turnovers, 14 of 22 from the field, 3 of 5 from downtown. Call me crazy, but I think he's my MVP pick.
Well,
And it's not because he's
I will call you crazy, but for other reasons, not just because you picked Shea Gilgeous-Alexander to be your MVP. But anyway, this could be the most interesting MVP race, Gage.
I want to know who your pick is.
Well, I got quite a few because I'm looking at the points per game list, Cage, and I think you could argue Embiid could be MVP, Luka Doncic could be MVP, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander could be MVP. We haven't even mentioned Giannis Antetokounmpo yet. Where does he fit? De'Aaron Fox right now averaging 30 a game for the Sacramento Kings. Does he get a vote? Obviously, Kevin Durant. Curry. Does Curry somehow get a vote? Jason Tatum's in there. Anthony Edwards. Where does he fall? Nikola Jokic, LeBron James. And then we get down to number 19 on the points per game list, Cage. And he's not my pick. He's my dark horse. I'm going to say a dark horse. My dark horse pick for the MVP.
Wait. Without looking at the points per game stats, let me take a wild stab at this and say it's an Indiana Pacers guard.
It may be.
But you go ahead.
It's Benedict Mathurin. Wait, sorry. It's Tyrese Halliburton. And here's why. Not only is he averaging 24.7 points per game, he's averaging 12.7 assists per game. He had 2 consecutive games of over 20 assists. He had only 11 in the most recent game, but before that, those last 2 games, before the most recent one, was 20-plus assists in both. So he's averaging a career high in points, a career high in assists. His rebounds are up. His efficiency, he's hyper efficient. He hasn't turned the ball over a whole lot. I'm not saying Halliburton gets it, but I think he should get at least a couple votes. Because we haven't seen a guy like this in a very long time. This good of a passer, this efficient of a passer, they're hard to find.
Because a lot of point guards do have substance and have a lot of flash, but it comes at the expense of turnovers. You don't really see that with Halliburton.
For example, Tyrese Halliburton has 12.7 assists per game, right? His turnover per game is 2.6, right? So you'd say roughly on average, he averages about 5.5 to 6 assists per turnover, which is really good. The next
really
2
is.
guys in assists per game is Trae Young at 11.3 and Luka Doncic at 9.4. Okay, so keep that in mind. Second and third in assists per game, Luka Doncic and Trae Young, 11.3, 9.4. You look at the turnovers per game. Number 1 is Trae Young at 4.3. Number 2 is Luka Doncic at 4 flat. That's the difference. That is the difference.
Yep. I think he will get MVP votes. I like
Like,
Tyrese Halliburton a lot, but
we
to
love
win
Tyrese
it,
Halliburton on this show.
Indiana's gonna have to go on a run and like be a top 3 seed for him to garner consideration enough to to somehow take that MVP.
That's why he's the dark horse. That's why he's the guy that I think will get votes. I'm not sure if he'll get it.
Hmm.
And then to my real pick. Now, we all know I'm a fan of the great Nikola Jokic. We all know that I am not the biggest fan of the process. And, Cage, I'm trying to decide, do I do it? I really want to.
Gee,
I really, really want to. But I'm not sure I can do it. I'm not sure I can pick him. Because I'm not picking Shea. Not picking Shea. I'm not picking Embiid. I don't think I can pick Luka over a guy like Halliburton. I gotta pick Nikola Jokic. Like, I think I have to pick the guy who should be going to be 4 times straight MVP. Because he also is a hyper efficient passer from the center spot, which is even more crazy than being a hyper efficient passer at the point guard position. Nikola Jokic is a great scorer and scores the ball very well. He can shoot from 3. He is the leader of his team. His team is also really good. I believe they are top 3 right now in the Western Conference are the Denver Nuggets. They're number 3
mhm.
in the Western Conference. So I think I got to take Nikola Jokic. But my name that I wanted to say, but I don't think I can, is, of course, Jason Tatum. Now, Cage, I gave my dark horse pick. Do you have a dark horse pick? Do you have a guy that you think won't get votes or will get very few votes that you think should get more consideration than they're probably going to get because of if that's narrative or if that's just because their team's not very good? Because I have another one, to be honest with you. I have another guy that I think should get votes that I don't think will get votes in the MVP race.
I got one for you. Jimmy Butler, just kidding.
I would you need to get out the bleep machine for that one, Cage. That one I can tell you without even beyond a shadow of a doubt, Cage. If you said that name and we're serious, I would
Murder me?
you'd need the bleep machine. You better not pull up to York on Friday and Saturday. Like you would see me on site, Cage. See me on site. That's all I gotta say.
Oh, I was gonna say a name that was even worse, but no.
If you said Karl Anthony Towns, I better not see you the rest of this year. We just got 2020-24, Cage, and I wouldn't want to see you the rest of the year. So don't do this to us, okay? Don't do the things you're trying to do. Pick a real, actual candidate to be your dark horse MVP pick.
Anthony Edwards.
Do you think he
Arg-
gets votes?
He should. He should. He's the top dog on that T-Wolves team. And they got the best record in the West. Quite simple. Now, not averaging as many points in comparison to his contemporaries, but averaging 26.3 points per game, 40, almost 46% from the field, 38% from downtown, 84% from the line, more than 5 rebounds and 5 assists per game, averaging more than a steal per game. Turnovers have been a little bit shaky, but he's the best scorer and arguably the best player on a Timberwolves team that has exceeded expectations and is the first seed in the West right now. Those two combined, like, he should get some votes.
Well, Cage, you didn't say my other dark horse pick. And I want to see what you think of this particular pick. Because it's
Okay.
definitely out there. I
Okay.
don't even think you'll think of this guy, to be honest. But he's got a career high in points right now. His assists are right where they're supposed to be. His rebounds are up a little bit, but still up from last year's total. His turnovers are reasonable, even though his assist numbers aren't astronomical. His steals are up to a career high. So he's a guy that, again, I don't think will get votes, but I think should be in better consideration. But I think that narrative around his team is why he won't. It is Sacramento Kings guard De'Aaron Fox. De'Aaron Fox is averaging 30 points a night. He's fourth right now in points per game. 6.1 assists, 4.6 rebounds, 1.7 steals, only turns the ball over 2.6 times per game on average. He's, 48% from the field on more attempts from last year. He's almost 40% from three. Last year he shot 5 threes a game and was 32%. This year he's shooting basically 9 threes a game and he's shooting 40% from 3-point land. So
That's quite a big difference.
not only is he up in points and he's shooting way better from behind the arc and with more attempts, which is even more impressive. His assists are right where they were last year. His rebounds are up from last year. His steals are up from last year. De'Aaron Fox deserves to be in the MVP race. No, I don't think he'll win it. No, I don't think he'll get a first place vote. But he deserves to at least get mentioned, Cage,
Yep.
in the conversation.
He does. I think the one problem with Fox is that he's like him and Sabonis are the two-headed monster of that team. So vote splitting might happen between those two. I got one more dark horse pick.
All right, well, we're figuring out all the dark horses. We got test rolls running right through here. Okay, Cage, who do you got?
Who do I have? Now, you might call me crazy for saying this. You've already called me crazy enough as it is. But he's kind of in the wake of so many injuries to this particular team, to key guys. This team's still hanging around like the play-in picture, has actually like won more games and hasn't like plummeted down the standings. And I think they're a couple of games away from like crashing like the top 4 party in the East. You gotta think Donovan Mitchell gets some votes too. Averaging 27.9 points per game, 5.7 rebounds per game, 5.7 assists. I believe it's a career high. Yes, it is a career high, 1.9 steals per game, shooting 45.7% from the field, a shade under 35% from downtown, but 90% at the free throw line, a career high. And it's what Cleveland has sort of dealt with. Garland and Mobley out until Darius Garland and Evan Mobley out until February at the earliest. And Cleveland's just hung around in that East playoff picture. If they go on a hot run there, you would think Mitchell should get some MVP love.
And again, I think a big component of what you're saying there, Cage, is the injuries to Mobley, and who else got hurt? Cage, was it Allen?
No, Darius Garland.
Gar, you're right. It was Darius Garland, one of my favorite players in the NBA. How selfish he is in his passing.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we're just about done the NBA talk
Mm-hmm.
before we move off. So I think we're gonna do this first, Cage. We're gonna go to the Scrabble board. I got 2 names for 2 very different reasons.
Okay.
One's for you and one's for an article. I'm gonna give you the first one, which is for you, because I know you're gonna go off. Okay.
All right.
So the first one is P N H M O O T S. And I think I got all the letters there. I definitely didn't scrabble these, so I'm trying to scrabble them in the moment, which probably isn't a good idea.
PNHMOOTS.
Say that one more time to me.
PNHMOOTS.
Yep, that's all the letters.
Oh. Got a clue?
He plays for the team that just snapped the 28-game losing streak.
Oh, Oscar Thompson.
It is Oscar Thompson, Cage, and do you have an inkling of why he's on the Scrabble board today?
I do not.
It's for something you've complained a lot about recently with the Detroit Pistons. It
Oh,
has
him
been
not
his
getting PT?
usage. In the win over the Toronto Raptors, Oscar Thompson played all of like 12 minutes. He played 24 minutes in the 136-113 loss for the Pistons. So that one game winning streak lasted pretty long, all of like one day. So yeah, Oscar Thompson continuing to get in interesting minutes. Got 12 minutes in the win over the Raptors. Obviously, as a non-starter as well. So again, Monty Williams and the Detroit Pistons not exactly playing their young guys consistently, which is interesting.
And disappointing. I get why his twin brother Amon's not really playing much for the Rockets because Houston's got a lot of depth and they're actually winning games. What excuse does Detroit have? That's all I gotta say about that.
Short and to the point, Cage. I actually don't mind it.
What do you mean?
I don't mind a quick little answer to that.
Hmm.
You didn't need to rant and rave and like I do about that bum Karl-Anthony Towns or that bigger bum and Jimmy Butler. Ironically, we played on the same team. Talk about the worst team in NBA history. It was that one. I got the second name, Cage. Are you ready?
Yep.
Trdaun.
Come again. TRDA.
Trdaun. United Nations.
Kevin Durant.
It is it is Slender Man. It is Kevin Durant. And the reason why Kevin Durant makes the Scrabble board today is Adrian Wojnarowski came out with a report saying that in Phoenix there is a palpable tension with Kevin Durant that is frustrated with the roster, frustrated with the underwhelming play by his team, and that he'd like to see them be able to improve. So I'll actually quote a little bit of what Woj said here. He said, "You talk to people in Phoenix and around the organization, they feel the frustration with Durant. Part of that certainly is the missed games for Bradley Beal. This team was built around those three stars. The underwhelming supporting cast that comes from those massive trades for Durant and Bradley Beal that really gutted the organization and left them having to sign a lot of minimum players to fill out the payroll. And then understanding that they lack the assets, the draft picks, the trade capital to go out and really improve this team. This is something they're going to have to manage in Phoenix with Kevin Durant." Kevin Durant responded on Instagram, but he later deleted the post. Woj saying somebody else feels that I'm frustrated and it turned into me being mentally checked out. That's crazy. These people can flat out lie on my name and make S up, and you people will believe it. But when my teammates and coaches speak on how I am as a teammate, you ignore it. Lol. So Kevin Durant shooting back at Woj. over a report of his frustration in Phoenix. And what's funny, Cage, I don't think anyone blames Kevin Durant for being frustrated. Yes, he worked his way out of OKC. He worked his way out of Golden State. He worked his way out of Brooklyn. Yeah, he's burning a lot of bridges. But when you're a great player, you can do that. In all honesty, if you're a great player, you can burn bridges and go back. So, KD kind of, again, going right at Woj. Cage, what do you make of this? Do you see any smoke to the fire?
I like it. I like it. I'm like, you feel like you're, and that's the problem with media. And that's the problem with media and with like NBA fans in general. Like the general NBA fan. How do I put this respectfully? I feel like this
idiots.
goes to yeah, pretty much. They're idiots. Took the words right out of my mouth. But he hit it on the head. KD hit it on the head. They'd be so quick to believe stories from like Wojnarowski or Shams. But when you hear it from your team, from like players, coaches who have been in that locker room more, it's just crickets. So yeah, KD's going scorched earth on the NBA fan base and Wojnarowski. I love to see it. Like you can only take disrespect for so long.
We'll see if the Woj tweet is true and that there is some discontent in Phoenix, which again would make sense. This team is supposed to win. Booker, KD, Beal, even though Beal's been hurt a lot of the time, they're supposed to win. That's supposed to be a big three to win. And there aren't. They're below 500. They're not. I don't think they're even in the play-in right now, Cage. Like, they need a quick turnaround here. And again, I think that's just getting healthy. Getting those three guys to be healthy at the same time. Because Booker got hurt early in the year. Beal's been basically hurt all year.
And now KD's hurt.
And yeah, now KD's dealing with some injury. So, they just got to find a way to get all three of these guys healthy at the same time.
I just think health's the issue for them, to be honest. Because when they're healthy, I don't like. You would think they would figure it out.
For their sake, you got to hope they do, because who knows what happens if this one doesn't work. Do they trade Booker? Do they trade Beal away? Do they trade KD away, trying to recoup the assets they lost trading for those guys? Well, for KD and Beal specifically.
I don't think they'll trade Booker. I doubt that happens.
I mean, if you think Phoenix needs to go for a rebuild, I mean, I wouldn't doubt it.
I mean, but Booker's been their homegrown kid.
I guess. But
That's also like
I just think Phoenix is getting closer and closer to a well-needed rebuild.
Yeah, you could say that. They had young talent and then they traded it all away.
Ironically, to get older and get Kevin Durant and get Bradley Beal.
Yep.
So I guess we'll just have to see. We'll now move off of the NBA, but before we go, I will have to mention, sports betting has rapidly risen in popularity, and I want to connect you with an opportunity to get started or get ahead. Having multiple sports books or having multiple accounts on multiple sports books is a very simple way of maximizing your profits, and there's never been a better time to sign up. If you use our link, which is signupexpert.com/outrage, which will be in the description of this episode, it'll connect you to all the different sports books in your region, not just Cajun and I here in Ontario. It will show you the best options in the state. It'll show you the best option in Alberta, in BC, up in the territories, to get you the best return, not only on your bet, but also to show you the best sign-up waivers. Like most sports books today, Cage, when you and I can attest to this, offer you
Mhm.
free money when you sign up. So say you put even $25 onto an account, it will usually match that amount onto your account. So you technically have $50 to place some bets and try to make some money.
Yep.
And when you sign up with this link, it'll automatically show you the best offers that each sportsbook will give you. And not only when you use this, you get to see all the sports books. Using multiple sports books, the advantage to that is you get to compare odds. So when you do what Cajun does and bet player props every night, you can get the best return on your bet by just picking the right sports book and picking the right parlay or picking the right player prop in Cajun's case. So Cajun,
Yep.
as I finish my read that I did kind of ad lib halfway through, pardon me. What is your player prop or two player props you want to share with us today? Because I know you already got a couple. I even see the topic down here, Cage. So what is what do you got for the player props?
Well, I'm gonna just stick to just one because I feel like this is the one that
Is
I
it
feel
a
like
100%er?
I feel like it is.
Obviously, again, bet what you can afford to lose. Please don't gamble if you're under 18 here in Ontario or whatever your legal gambling age is in your country or state or province. Please gamble what you can afford to lose. Please, please, if you feel like you're starting to slide, do stop, please. Gambling can be addictive. Please do it within reason. Go ahead, Cajun.
I got Giannis Antetokounmpo over 8.5 first quarter points.
I will mention Cajun loves first quarter points. Cajun
Just first
loves
quarters
first
in
quarter points.
just first quarters in general, because players always love to start off strong. So why not take advantage of the wave? But it's the
8.5
opponent
is
that
a
he's
lot,
facing,
Cage.
but it's against the Pacers, and he has historically played very well against the Pacers.
I mean, we had the ball boy fight. He had 64 against the Pacers.
And he had 55, I believe, like the game before in Indiana, like in season tournament aside. So he's played well against the Pacers, and I feel like 8.5. I'm like, that's a little too low.
Are there any others you
Like
want to
how?
mention, Cage? I know you said just one, but I know you got more than one.
Mm, I do have another one. Tyus Jones over 18.5 points and assists.
Was that eight?
Nice
That's points plus assists.
points plus assists.
That's 18.5 for Tyus Jones,
Yeah,
current Wizard.
yeah.
Honestly, I kind of like that one because Tyus Jones is, as you and I spoke about when he was traded and how impactful he has been. He's a really good player because he formerly of Memphis really helped out that second unit in Memphis. You can see what happened when he left, as well as John Morant being suspended. I honestly don't mind that one. 18.5 points plus rebound or points plus assists, which if you don't know, it means if Tyus Jones has 18.5 or has 19 points plus assists. So if that's 13 points and say six assists, that's 19.
Mhm.
That gets you the bet. And so on and so forth.
Yep. And he had 14 points and 8 assists last game, which do quick maths. That's 22. So to me, 18.5 feels a bit too low. If you want to get a little risky and add points, rebounds, and assists to it, it's 21.5. I wouldn't mind taking that. I just think the points and assists is a bigger guarantee.
And Tyus Jones having a great year, by the way. 12.5 points per game, 3 rebounds, 5.5 assists, shooting basically 54% from the field and 20 or 42% from three. Tyus Jones is looking really good right now in Washington. And he was looking really good in Memphis, too. So good for Tyus Jones, the former Duke Blue Devil.
And not a great look for the Memphis Grizzlies at the same time.
Yeah. Adding to that rather abysmal offseason in the end, with none of their moves really working out in their favor.
Poor Marcus
But
Smart.
now, poor Marcus Smart. But now moving on to the NCAA. We'll start off with the women's side. As Caitlin Clark saved her Hawkeyes from maybe an upset against Michigan State in Big Ten play, They win 76-73. It took 40 from maybe the best player in the NCAA right now in Caitlin Clark, including a buzzer beater to win it in the fourth quarter.
And like a deep one too.
She looked like Harden, Cage. Step back from the logo.
Oh man.
And I will mention with that, a lot of big games going on today in the women's side. UConn versus Creighton tonight, 12 versus 21. UConn coming off a big win most recently over the number 18 Marquette Golden Eagles. So another ranked game for the Huskies. TCU versus Baylor, 6 versus 23. Baylor being 6, TCU being 23. So again, some more ranked on ranked games in conference on the women's side of the bracket.
Mm-hmm.
And then looking at the men's side, Arizona fall again, this time 100-82 against Stanford, who are not normally a powerhouse on the men's side of the bracket at the very least. We'll mention some ranked on ranked games. Marquette beat Creighton 72-67 in a 10 versus 22 matchup. We'll also mention FAU after being ranked as high as 7, their highest ranking ever as a program. They lost to Florida Gulf Coast 72-68, so they fell like a stone in the most recent AP poll. The Bulldogs of Gonzaga lost to the SDSU, the Aztecs, 84-74. So Gonzaga fell all the way down to 24th in the most recent AP polls. We're going on to last night's games. Big wins for a lot of ranked teams, and nobody got upset. Nobody picked up a loss last night. The next day, where there's some really good ranked on ranked games, is a heavyweight tilt on Friday, Cage. In Big Ten play, the Illinois Illini make their way to Indiana to take on the Purdue Boilermakers. Number
That'll
9
be a good one.
Illinois, number 1 Purdue. That's going to be a heavyweight clash.
Holy. There might be some ranking changes after that one if Illinois pulls off an upset.
And we'll see how far they could go. Then some big ranked games on Saturday. Upcoming, January 6th. North Carolina make their way to Death Valley to take on the Clemson Tigers. Quickly looking down, I saw at least one more. Ole Miss make their way to Tennessee to take on the Tennessee Volunteers. That's 22. Ole Miss undefeated at 13-0 take on Tennessee, who are 5th in the nation in SEC play in Knoxville. If Ole Miss can stay undefeated, they're going to jump up the rankings if they can beat number 5 Tennessee. And that ends the ranked games on Saturday on the men's side. But again, a lot of big games going on the NCAA side of the pool of the docket in basketball right now. And conference play adds a wrinkle because not only are you forced to play ranked teams depending on what conference you're in, you got to play them twice. You got to play them at home and away. So you can't even get away with beating them once. You got to beat them again. So, in all honesty, Cage, the Illini could lose to Purdue, at Purdue, and then beat them in Illinois. So, that's just the kind of the problem when you're a big school playing in a big conference like the Big Ten, the SEC, the Big 12, the Big East. It doesn't get any easier playing in conference than out of conference. But anyway, Cage, I think that's basically it. Anything else you want to talk about before we go?
But Jordan Clarkson, first triple double, and I believe this was against Dallas, by a Utah Jazz player in 16 years. So think about all the triple doubles that Nikola Jokic has, LeBron James has had, Russell
Luka
Westbrook has
Doncic.
had, Luka Doncic. And then Utah finally got one for the first time in 16 years. The last player that had a triple double since Carlos Boozer on February 13th, 2008. So that was a stretch of 1,256 games. Clarkson's triple-double off the bench was the first in more than 40 years for a Jazz player. This is back to February 5th, 1983. Mark Eaton on that day had 12 points, 14 rebounds, and 12 block shots. So you were talking about history being made in the NBA like throughout. This is a little nugget. This is a little nugget to add to this NBA season.
The history-making 2023-24 NBA season. Who'd a thunk it? Anything else you want to talk about before we go?
I think that's it.
As you stayed muted throughout the basically entire NCAA conversation. Thanks, Cage. Or conversation. More soliloquy by me.
I guess in terms of Caitlin Clark, like you said one of the best players in the NCAA right now. I'd say the best. I'd say the best, and she's shown us. She's continued to amaze us. And it becomes more and more plausible that she could break that scoring record set by Kelsey Plum. And I saw that three. I saw that last second three there from Clark against Michigan State. Not really a lot was going on in that possession. It was like a busted play, and she just stepped back and just nailed it. I'm like, well, damn. I was like, that ish looks smooth. But it's adding to the legend that is Caitlin Clark. And man, if she leads Iowa to a national title, that legend is going to continue to grow. And you mentioned the Arizona-Stanford game. I just don't think that was more or less so Arizona playing bad. Stanford just could not miss.
They shot 64% from three. So I don't necessarily think you're wrong in saying that Stanford just was on fire all game.
Yeah, like shots that you think wouldn't go in on a normal given, they were falling for Stanford. And any team that can shoot the lights out like that has a great chance of upsetting a team if you shoot that well. So yeah, it's an upset by ranking standards, with Arizona being the 4 seed. But if you play decent on both sides of the floor and just like fall victim to hot shooting, you gotta tip your cap off. You gotta tip your cap off and say good game and move on to the next one.
And we'll see if any more upsets come out over the next week as we get ready for our next episode, which I don't even know when it will be because this is Wednesday. So this could be Monday or Thursday. We'll probably call it the Thursday episode. So I don't think we'll be back till next Monday because obviously New Year's was on Monday, and Cage and I had plans and had some stuff to do. So we'll probably be back next Monday.
Also, Happy New Year to everyone.
Yes, welcome to 2024. Hopefully it is a good year for all. Cage, with that being said, I think that's the end of it. So for Cage and Thiruthanikasalam, I'm Spencer Byers. Thank you so much for joining us today here on Polar Opposites, only on the Outrage Inc.